Well, hello, everyone. It is Wonder Series Wednesday. I am so excited to have you here for another episode. Our goal here at the Wonder Series, what is it? It is to help you wonder and think outside the box. What would life be like if you looked at it from a different perspective, if you opened your mind to different possibilities, and then the opportunities that come your way are incredible because you're open to them. You're looking at life from a different direction, even, and in different areas in your life, whether it's your health, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your career. All of these things are part of who you are and what makes living a healthy, happy life essential. So really excited to talk to my guest today. My guest today is Jaclyn Gallo. She is a life coach. She's a speaker. She's an author. She's a really cool lady. She's from the Philadelphia area where I lived for many years. The name of her business, Clarity and Action Consulting. So we're going to get some clarity here, guys. And we're going to get an action step or two to help you not just wonder, but to take your wonder to that next step. So Jaclyn, as I said, she is a life coach. She is a 2-time best-selling author. Woohoo! She's a TEDx speaker and host of the popular Spark Your Light podcast. She's been featured in Forbes, Elite Daily, Bustle, and Good Morning Washington. I almost said that like Good Morning Vietnam, but Good Morning Washington. Let's see. So what does Jaclyn do? Obviously, she does a lot. She's got a lot of great insight and knowledge, but she helps women create lives they love. Jaclyn, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I am too. So helping women create lives they love. So I'm going to assume then that you, my friend, are living a life that you love.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, how did that come about? Because I know it takes some time. It takes a little bit of that meandering. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say it's always evolving, right? And so there's always like a next level. I don't think we just like make it and we get there and everything's perfect. I love every day and I focus on gratitude and I focus on doing things that bring me joy. And I always have bigger goals and a new vision that I'm working towards. So I want to start there because I don't like the picture that you just get there and then everything's good, because that creates this vision of I will be happy in the future. And you get to take your power back and be happy now. So that's how I want to start it. But my journey did begin at a place where I was a lot less happy than I am now. I was the summer between my junior and senior year of college doing my dream internship in corporate America. And for about the first few weeks, I loved it. I woke up every day excited. I was excited about the people I was meeting and the work I was doing. And then after a few weeks of it, I thought, is this it? Does it get any better? And I was in this really scary place that I'm sure many people listening can relate to, of being at about 80% fulfilled. So it wasn't so awful that I said, I have to quit this job tomorrow and change my entire life. But it wasn't so good that I wanted to stay there or that I was looking forward to my day each morning. And I think, will we look forward to every day? No, we're always going to have challenges in our life. And those are opportunities to grow and evolve. And we're always going to have things we don't want to do, no matter what our career is, no matter what our health looks like, no matter what our relationships look like. But if we can wake up excited most days, that's the goal that I have. And I didn't feel that way at all. I felt mediocre. That's the best word I can use to describe it. And to be honest, I wasn't sure what was out there. I wasn't sure if you could feel excited most days. I didn't necessarily see my parents being lit up about their careers. I saw them working really hard to put food on the table and support their 3 children. And so I thought, I'm not sure if anything will change, but it's worth it to try. What do I have to lose? And so the vision that I had in my heart was to start my own business. And I had no business idea. So long story short, I threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall. I tried a lot of different things and I failed a lot. The first 3 years, I spent a total of $50K on one product and 2 apps that never made it off the ground. I graduated college, moved home with my parents, was in a ton of debt, had borrowed money from lots of people, had raised money from family and friends, anything I could do to get these business ideas off the ground, and nothing I did worked. And I felt like I was not enough. I felt like this was a sign from God that I was not meant to be doing this work and I was supposed to be redirected. I felt like a complete failure. I felt embarrassed. I felt like the people who had made comments when I first started about, who is she? What is she doing at this age? Who does she think she is? I felt like they were right and the things they said were true. And I hit a complete rock bottom in my life. And I turned to personal development because I didn't know where else to go. I felt lost. Even if I were to get a job, I felt like I would still feel terrible about myself. And I wasn't even sure what I would want to do with my life at this point. And that personal development completely saved me, completely changed my entire life. And it didn't happen all at once. What happened was I would read these books and I would read these concepts and a lot of things would feel, But then once in a while, I would read one sentence, one journal prompt, one new belief that would stick. And I would think, maybe that's true. Or what if I could believe that? And one thing I remember that really stood out was this question I read, what is working? And at first I remember thinking, well, nothing. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm reading these books. Like nothing is going well in my life. And I sat on it a little bit longer. And it was sort of like I was standing in a dark room and all of a sudden the lights were turned on and I could now see all the things in the room. And one by one, I scanned the room and I started seeing different pieces of this business I was building, this entrepreneurial career I was leading that were working for me. And they were small things. They weren't life-changing, but they stood out as things that were working, whereas other things were definitely not. And one of those things that I saw in that room was speaking. And I didn't call it speaking, I called it marketing, and I wasn't getting paid for it, but I was going around to local colleges and I was sharing my story of struggling with an eating disorder in college. And that's why I wanted to start this first product and then this app that I tried to build. And while those things failed, the conversations I had with women didn't fail. They were really impactful. Mm-hmm. And so that changed everything for me. And long story short, it was almost like an overnight success from that point on, which is so funny because it was years and years of failing. But I often find that when we're in alignment and when we're just really doing the things we're meant to do in the world, we start to see the results quickly. And that's what happened for me. So this was at the end of 2018. I decided I'm going to focus on speaking. In 2019, I booked a full speaking tour. I think I spoke probably 40 times. I started taking on my first clients and just really everything started to grow from there. And I then built a lifestyle around the business I wanted. I thought about what do I want my life to look like? And it changes at every season. I recently got married in October. So that's brought a change. And with each season, I know going forward, thank you, it will evolve. And I'm just open to the evolution. I'm open to what's right for me in each season, how I want my business to look, how I want my life to look, what that balance is. And I'm so grateful that I didn't give up and I allowed personal development to really guide me to becoming the best version of myself, which naturally always leads to everything else working out.
Absolutely. You gave yourself the space, the time and the space to actually wonder, one, what you liked, what was, like you said, what was working, what lit you up. Yeah. And I can see so often people, people see where you are now. And it's like, oh, overnight, sensation, but you just explain to everyone, all of the steps that one needs to go through. We're all searching for that healthy, happy life, right? But like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. And so the idea of wondering and thinking outside the box, like you said, kind of like as the lights kind of shined on things, those were the pieces that I can see. I saw it very clearly when you were telling us about it, was like those little pieces, those little kind of breadcrumbs. And I think it's really inspiring because so often we are told, do good in school, go to college, get a good job, get married, have a family, buy a house. All of these things that society kind of tells us this is the way you're supposed to do it. And you started on that route. You had this great internship. And luckily for you, you realized at that stage in life, is this it? Rather than when you're 50 years old going, hold on a minute. So our audience here kind of runs the gamut. Mostly we're women at 45 and over. Obviously, you're a little younger than that. And so that to me is inspiring, because you can say to people, hey, I was young and, green when I started all of this. With someone with a little bit more life experience, maybe it happens a little faster.
Totally.
But what are the things that you think, one of the things you talked about was, gratitude, starting with gratitude. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how does one who's listening, someone's listening going, okay, Jaclyn, yeah, things are okay. Things are all right. Life is good, but we want them to be better. We want people to be as excited about their life as you are when you talk about your business, because you totally light up.
Thank you. So it's really interesting because it's difficult to climb from a very low emotional level to a very high one. This is the emotional guidance scale that Abraham Hicks often talks about. And so I think a lot of people are at a place where they're just feeling okay. And they expect that, okay, I'm going to write down things I'm grateful for one day, and now I'm going to feel optimistic every day. But that's not how it works. It's one step at a time. So I think the first thing is just give yourself permission to take it one step at a time and know that you don't have to feel better overnight. What's going to happen is when you start making changes inside, little by little, you're going to start making changes outside, because your identity, who you believe you are, which is the deepest level of change we can create on the inside, creates your thoughts, which create your actions, which create your circumstances. So if you don't like your job and you don't like your current health and you don't like the way that your relationship is currently going, when you start changing the inside things, those things will naturally start to change too, but it's going to take some time. I think gratitude is a great place to start. And sometimes I find that even gratitude can feel like too much of a jump. So at the beginning of every client call, I ask my clients to start with gratitude. And when I first started coaching, with very little experience, I thought this was a great idea, because everyone will come into the call and they'll say some things that they're feeling grateful for. They'll feel really excited and peaceful, and they'll be really open to our conversation. But then one day I had a client that was having a really hard day. And she's like, Jaclyn, I can't think of anything I'm grateful for right now. Like, it just feels like a total lie to say out loud. It feels like I'm really forcing it. And it just doesn't feel helpful to me. And then it clicked for me that sometimes that's not what we need. So I asked her instead, what in your life right now can you accept? And just start there with acceptance. And all of a sudden she was able to say, well, I've accepted that there's this situation at work, and I've made peace with the fact that this thing's going on. And it was really funny, because what happened next is then she said, oh, and by the way, this great thing happened last week. And so she was able to start to climb that emotional scale just by starting with acceptance. So start where you are. That's the first thing. I do love a daily gratitude practice. I recommend it to everyone. I mean, who doesn't recommend it, because it's so life-changing. What I love about the daily practice is that it focuses on the little things that happen in daily life. I really encourage you to focus on the past 24 hours, the things that just 5 things that made you light up that day. And it helps you find the good even amongst difficult times. And I've been able to keep that practice. The day my grandmother died, I did 5 things I was grateful for. I remember that being a really hard day. And sometimes the things I was grateful for were more like acceptance things. Maybe it was, my instructor in the spin class I took, she noticed that I looked off, and she came over to me and she said, how are you doing today? And the fact that she noticed my energy and came over, I remember writing it that day. And so even amongst really difficult times, we're usually able to just find those 5 things. And that's a really great place to start. We could go on from there about many mindset practices, but I think that's a great place to start.
No, I agree. I think it's really important. I actually have a friend he goes by that gratitude guy. And, he's a man in his 70s who, kind of woke up one day, had, not so great things happen at one point. And, he wakes up every day in gratitude and shares that message. And it's amazing how, no matter what your circumstances are, like you said earlier, your thoughts, actions equal, kind of become your circumstances, and you can change them in a positive or negative way. But we always hope to be going in a positive way by this simple practice of gratitude. And I really appreciate the fact that you said, sometimes that's even too much, starting with acceptance. I've heard that, but not often. And I think that's a piece that everyone needs to kind of put into their daily gratitude. If you're just having one of those days, acceptance is truly like step one. I really appreciate that you said that.
Thank you.
So often people go, well, really? Gratitude? That's really what I have to add in my life. And, when people are in a negative space, it is too much. I can definitely see that.
I feel like whenever there's a mindset development practice that feels icky to you inside, it's not serving you. And I think that's a big problem in personal development, because we're taught, okay, just write down your affirmations. The number of clients who told me this affirmation makes me want to throw up, I'm like, oh no, then that's not working for you. Right. And so like, there's a concept I love called bridge affirmations, where you basically can bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to go. So let's say the affirmation is, I am healthy, but every time you write that down, it just feels like a total lie in your body. A better affirmation for you might be, I am in the process of becoming a healthier version of myself every day. Or I am starting to feel healthier each day. You can play with it, but come up with some sort of variation. It's kind of like an arrow, and it points you in the direction you're going, but you don't have to be there yet. And that really, really helps, because then you can start to believe that and it feels true to you. So the point is, whatever we talk about and whatever content you consume that, talks about mindset, if there's a practice or a strategy or a journal prompt and it doesn't feel good to you inside, it's probably not helping you. And it has good intentions, but it really needs to be customized for where you're at today. And it's very supportive to be open to doing that.
That's really, really cool. Because I know one of the things that always drove me crazy when I would read, when I read books, and they're like, speak like, you're there, whatever the vision is, or wherever it is that you want to be, kind of like you've jumped over the gap and this is, you're there already. And, start speaking like, I'm a lottery winner and I won, the Powerball, I won $150 million. And, that isn't true. So, the fake it till you make it kind of concept. I've never agreed to that. I never thought that was helpful, because like you said, whenever I would say things that weren't true, maybe I would be working on them, but they weren't true at that time. It did feel icky. It felt inauthentic. And I always questioned, like, how is this actually helping me get there if I'm saying it, but I don't believe it?
Exactly. It's funny you say fake it till you make it. I have this sign. It's backwards, but faith it till you make it. And it just reminds me that we don't have to fake anything. We can be ourselves and we can believe in ourselves. And I like to break down the big thing that feels so scary and so far into what's that next step that I can believe. Mm-hmm. And once you get there, then what's the next step you can believe is possible for you? And just one step at a time, that's how we get there. So I always faith it. I
love that. Thank you. It's kind of funny when you think of the steps, I always think of like a board game.
Yeah.
From when I was a kid. We had this one, it was called Chutes and Ladders.
Yes.
I loved that game when I was a kid. And my sister and I would play, and it was always kind of fun because, like, you had to kind of get to, the goal was to get around the board before someone else. So a little competition, but always the kind of thing that always, I didn't realize it then, but always kind of thought later on that was kind of funny. When you got one of the chutes, which was basically a slide, you got to like bypass a bunch of the steps. And in life, you really can't bypass the steps.
It's good, but everyone's searching for it. Like, I feel like so many people are desperate for the content that tells them this is the one thing. I was just on a podcast yesterday and she said, what's the one thing, if you could give one piece of advice from your journey that helped you create success? And I looked at her and I said, there's not. I know that's what you want to hear. And I know that would probably get lots of people to listen to this episode, But the truth is there's just not. It's many pieces and they come together. And sometimes we do have opportunities that really catapult us forward, and maybe they feel like that slide.
Mhm.
Like definitely I've met certain people that have really opened a lot of doors for me, or, just really helped me in different ways. And I thought, gosh, thank God I met that person, or this thing really felt like a big leap. My business, 10x'd in 1 year and different, like that's so awesome. But at the same time, I didn't skip any steps. I just was sprinting a little bit, but then I got out of breath and I had to walk. So it's kind of funny because it's like, we can't sprint the whole way. Right. And so, yeah, I think it's a really important message that's not talked about enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, like you can see some of the books. This is like just a teeny bit of my library that I have. And all of the books, of course, I've read all of them. Some of them I've read twice. There's always 2 or 3 books that I'm reading. And, I get a bit like from each of them, I probably take one little nugget from each of them. So yes, you have to read an entire book sometimes to get a nugget.
Yeah. But that's the best way to consume, because something that I know I did wrong for a long time was I took what everyone said as the Bible, and I would listen to everything they said. I would do things that didn't work for me. Like if someone says you should get up at 5 a.m., I was like, I'm a 5 a.m. riser. And, I would do it for a week and be like, I hate getting up at 5 a.m. I like feeling refreshed and waking up at 7 a.m. Or just now I wake up when I wake up.
You're my girl, 7 a.m. That's me.
It's a good time. Like it's still early. You still get the whole morning, but it's not so early that it's 5 a.m. And I feel like I have to go to bed at 9 p.m. because that's when I'm hanging out with my husband and enjoying my evening. And it's funny because it took me a really long time to learn that. It took me going against the grain of who I am and what works for me. And even something I had to learn again is that what works for me in one season might not work for me in the next. And
very true.
This seasons come and go. And again, when I'm in the period of a sprint, I'm going to need a different routine when I'm walking, or when I'm taking a break and sitting on the couch. And so it's just so important to get to know yourself above all else, and then use that as your lens for reading and learning and growing.
I love it because, the finding the lifestyle, the life that works for you. That's the subtitle of my book, Finding the Healthy Lifestyle That Works for You. Because, and you just talked about this, what works for you is not going to work for somebody else. It may not even work for your husband. I don't know what he does, but you're a married couple, but you also are individuals. Because I know with my husband, like sometimes we're on opposite schedules, and it's okay when it's for a couple of weeks, but at some point that's kind of like my sprint time. Like when he's in a sprint or I'm in a sprint, we're kind of doing things separately. But then it's like, okay, let's calm down. Let's get back on track, kind of like you say, like when you've done with your sprint, you're walking again and you get back on track in a different phase. And for me, I agree, like, lifestyle it does change. One of the things that I think is important about coaching, you do a different type of coaching than I do, but it's still, it's different, but it's similar, which I think is so cool. But it's kind of one of those things, like you don't just kind of coach with somebody or get a coach and then say, okay, great, I'm done, I'm good, and that's where you stay. It really is something that, you need throughout life, whether it's working with the same person, continually, or, in fits and spurts. But I think that's one of the things that most people kind of think, yep, they're going to read the book and they're going to do 100% what this person says, and they're going to have the same life that famous author, famous sports figure, whomever it might be, they're going to have that life.
Yeah. And I think with the coaching thing, what that reminds me of is a lot of people, they want to have it like figured out and then be done. It's like, this is my routine. And this is the routine I'm going to have for the rest of my life. Or like, I work with a lot of clients that have businesses. They're like, this is my business model. And this is it for the next 10 years. And it's like, that is that need for control and certainty that our humanness brings up in us. And I have it too. I get it. But the truth is, it's not the way it's going to play out. It should evolve, right? Like if Blockbuster had evolved, maybe they wouldn't have gone out of business, right? And if you keep your same schedule that you have in your 30s, when you're in your 50s, your body's going to be different. It's going to need different things, right? And for me, it's like even winter to summer, like summer, I want to be outside more, winter, I want to be inside more, right? And so I think it's really important to just surrender to what you need, to your journey, to where you are right now. And it comes back to that acceptance piece that we talked about in the beginning, to accept where you are, to know that where you are is enough, to know that you can find joy in where you are, even if it's not where you truly want to be. And I think that that's really powerful.
Or if it isn't perfect.
Yeah.
To
it never will be. It'll never be perfect, ever. Right. There's always something else you're going to want. I mean, and that's a good thing. I think people, again, like why they want that certainty is they want to get somewhere and then be like, I'm good. Mm-hmm. But as humans, we're designed to experience life. And as we have experiences, as we listen to a podcast or go on a certain vacation or are exposed to something new, maybe you hear about a new career path that you never thought about before, your desires start to bloom. And that's a good thing. We get to experience.
Absolutely.
So if we just allow that part of us, it feels like more of just going downstream instead of constantly trying to go upstream and swim against the current.
Yeah, it really is. Life is supposed to be about the journey. We are always so concerned with the destination, but I realized this many years ago. The destination to me in life is the day you die.
Wow.
Because we're all headed there at some point, right? That's kind of the ultimate destination. And whatever people believe happens after that, people have their own beliefs there. But, what are you doing in your life between now and then? That to me is truly living.
That's so good. I love that. I've never heard anyone say that before. That's really powerful.
Thank you. It just, when we talk about, like as a human, the things that we're supposed to, see and experience. And I hate to use the word supposed to, the things we are able to, or that are available to us. And I think this is part of the wonder piece is, what is out there? What does light you up? And sometimes, for me, I always kind of think every 10 years, we're a little different. We're the same person to our core, but we've done things, we've seen things, we've experienced. So the person you are at 30 is not the person you're going to be at 40.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. And so that's kind of where I think that's where we're headed. But sometimes we have pitfalls. We have to take detours. So let's talk a little bit about that. Because, both you and I are all about like the positive and finding the good and moving forward. But we both know, because we've both been in situations where, this didn't quite work out the way I thought it would. Again, whether it's a career, whether it's a relationship, a business, it could be so many things, a friendship. All of those pieces of life that really make, and to me, I always think, that those are some of the things that make life worth living.
Yeah.
So what is a good way for us to kind of step back when we do hit those detours and those pitfalls and reevaluate?
Yeah. What I think has been most helpful for me is looking at failures in two categories. So the first category is lessons. And the way that I see the lessons is you are climbing a mountain in your goal, whatever it is you're working towards, is at the top of that mountain. So it could be to build a business, to become the healthiest version of yourself, to improve your relationship, whatever it is, it's at the top of the mountain. You can see it from the bottom. And you start climbing. And for anyone who's ever done a hike, that sometimes you're going up and then all of a sudden the mountain starts going down and you're like, what the heck? I'm trying to get to the top. Why are there these valleys? And you're in the valley and you're feeling frustrated and you're like, why am I going down? I want to go up. And the truth is that your legs are not strong enough to get you to the top of that mountain. And this valley was placed there to strengthen your legs so that you can actually climb the mountain. So the way I see it, it is a divine opportunity for you to literally get the things you need, become the version of you need to be, learn the exact lessons you need so you can achieve your goal. So you're like, I want this, and the universe conspires in your favor to give you that. And then you get angry because you're like, this isn't what I want. And the universe is like, no, this is exactly what you want. And this is proven in everyone's life experiences. And you can do some journaling, and this will really, really help if you take the time to do this, because anytime you're in a future situation where you're experiencing this, you can now have the evidence from past experiences. And so it's much easier to believe in this. Mm-hmm. This is proven. Everyone I've ever spoken with has at least one experience in their life where they were going this way, and they needed to grow in a certain way. For me in my business, I know when it first started growing, I needed to learn how to manage the money in the business. Wow. And so I experienced some really big financial challenges because I didn't know how to manage the money. So I hired before I had the money to actually hire people. I made all of these terrible decisions. And then I thought, oh, wow, if my business had grown any faster, I would have totally blown all the money because I didn't know. I didn't know how to be a CEO. I didn't know how much do I save for taxes? When do I hire? How much do I reinvest? How much do I pay myself? Right. And so thank God that I hired that employee that I couldn't actually afford and let her go and owed this money for taxes and learned all these things at that level, because otherwise I would have really been challenged. So it was such a blessing to learn those lessons. So a lot of my failures fit into that category. And what that has allowed me to do in present day, as I go for my goals, is when I'm failing, I ask myself, okay, how could this failure be serving me? What lessons am I learning? And just recently, it's so funny because I had this experience again. A few weeks ago, I was launching this new course I was running, and I was doing it in a way that involved all my energy, and it was so intensive, and I didn't get the results I wanted to get. I felt like it failed. I was frustrated. And then I thought, oh, this is the lesson. The lesson is this isn't the way, because if this had worked in going towards my goal at the top of that mountain, then I would have thought every time I have to now do this. And that's not the life that I want when I have babies. That's not the life that I want in general. And so I thought, what a great lesson. That's not the way for me. That's not the strategy. How can we rework this? So that's one of the categories that's super helpful. The other category is a redirection. So I've also seen this quite often. A great example is relationships that didn't work out, jobs that didn't work out, anything that was really like didn't work. And then there was something better on the other side, but looked different. It is truly a redirection. You were not meant to have that thing. We can probably all find an example in our life of something that we thought it was that thing we wanted so badly, it didn't work. And this other thing we got is way better. Yep. Right. And totally, so again, I totally get it. Make a list of those things, right? Write down the relationships, career opportunities, the diet, whatever it was that didn't work. And now you have a way, way better experience today. And remember that when you are in those times where you're hitting up against a wall, an affirmation that I love to tell myself is this or something better? So if this isn't working, I know something better is on the other side. I can't see it. I don't know how it's going to work. I can't comprehend that there could be anything better than this in this moment because I just want this thing so badly to work out. But I know from my past experiences that I have proof that something better is coming. So lots of journaling, lots of reflection in real time, and also preparing yourself now. It's like going to the doctor every year for preventative medicine, as opposed to just going to the emergency room when there's a problem. So I do this journaling quite often. I'm often reflecting in real time so that when I do fail and when I am feeling really down, I have a bit more resilience inside of me from all of these past experiences. And I can pull from that when I need it. It doesn't mean it's not hard. It's still really hard. It still is awful, actually. Let's just be completely transparent. But you're stronger and you can get through it a little bit easier and you can pick yourself back up and keep going. And that's what matters the most.
Yes. Now I have a question, because now this is something that just popped into my head, because I have a friend who seems to be redirecting all the time. And, whether it's, money story or, relationship or whatever it might be, she always seems to be redirecting, and it's kind of in a bit of a panic mode.
So it's not a divine redirection. It's actually sort of a self-redirection.
Yes.
So this is good.
That actually, all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, self-redirection versus the divine redirection.
Yeah. So I think that in order to be like a divine redirection, and then people ask me a lot, like, how do you know when to pivot versus like keep going, right? Because I always say, keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't give up. Like the secret is just keep going. If you've given your all and you truly have done all the things, you've shown up, you feel in your heart, like I gave this thing my all and it's just not meant for me. That's a divine redirection. If you're redirecting out of fear, out of feelings of I'm not enough, you really have to be honest with yourself about where's this redirection coming from. I mean, there have been times in my business where I burned the boats, which is supposed to be this great mentality. And it's funny because I wrote about it in one of my books. It is a great mentality when it's used in the right way, but anything can be abused, right? And so I would burn the boat sometimes because I was afraid. I would burn the boats because I didn't feel enough. I would burn the boats because I was frustrated that I wasn't farther along. And then I had to go buy new boats. So it was quite difficult and quite challenging. So I think that's really important to be able to differentiate between, okay, have I given this my all and fully shown up for this thing? And the third part that gets a little bit complicated is, well, what if your vision changes? What if through the experience, you realize you don't actually want that thing you thought you wanted? You have to be really quiet with yourself, spend a lot of time in meditation, journaling. Is this truly what you want? And why is that? And I like to go back to values and vision. So what are the values you hold for your life? What is important to you? And people always have difficulty with this. I like to push people on, what if you had to rank them? I've had a lot of clients that like, well, this one in this situation, and it's not true that you actually have to rank them, but I think it's a good exercise to really get you thinking like, what is most important? What is second? What is third to you? And then what is your vision? And when I say your vision, I like that word because it feels really broad. So for a lot of people, they'll say their vision is to be happy, to be financially free, to be healthy. And they might not say my vision is to have this exact career or to be married to this specific person, right? It just might be to be in a healthy relationship, right? And so when you zoom out, okay, does this change align with your values and vision? And is it coming from a genuine place inside? And all of this just comes from a lot of honesty, a lot of quiet time, and sometimes an outside person. And this is where coaching, good friends, you might be able to step in occasionally to your friend's world and say, hey, is this coming? Where's this coming from? You know, is this really coming from you giving it your all? Because I have noticed that you change a lot. And I think you could be really successful at this thing if you gave it your all. And they might say, well, I just feel like, let's say they're an artist, my artwork isn't good enough. Well, then that's a clear sign that you may be able to point out for them. It sounds like this change is coming from that belief. It's not coming from a divine redirection. Yeah. So really powerful. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad we talked about that, because that was, that's really interesting, because we don't really talk about that, you know, very often. We just kind of talk about, failure is feedback. You know, we hear that all the time, but I really like how you kind of broke them down into these two things. And again, the failure is, feedback, which would be the lesson, but this additional piece about the redirection, because I see it so often with women in business. And when I got married and moved out to Minnesota, actually I moved and then I got married 10 months later. That was 20 years ago. So I've been married a while. But I left my corporate job. I left my career back in Philly, actually. And when I moved here, I knew that I would find what my thing was. I didn't really, know what it was at the time, because I had been going through this, corporate ladder thing, in my career. But then when I got married and moved to Minnesota, like that had to change. That was truly a divine kind of redirection. It truly was, the way I met my husband and everything. And it had taken a little bit of time. I tried this, I tried that, because I was on a very different path at one point. And that direct, that with that redirect, there were times when I thought, oh, this is what I'm going to do, and this is my vision. but then I would learn something more and continue, to grow. And so that's where I think where people's vision can change is
Right.
as you grow and learn more, and it's not like, don't be afraid of flip-flopping. People will say, oh, you're such a flip-flopper. No, when you're growing and learning and want more, want bigger, want better, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because the people who resonate with you will not think you're a flip-flopper and they'll follow along. Like I've had people who've been following me since my first product and, say, hey, Jaclyn, I've been following you for like 6 years. And I'm like, that is so awesome. Like, they're not like, oh, what a flip-flopper. She tried a product. She tried an app. Now she does coaching. Like this girl doesn't know anything, right? No, instead they love that. They love that journey and they love witnessing it.
I love it. So we do need to wrap up. So before we do so, I want you to tell us a little bit about your books, where we can find your TEDx talk, and then how we can connect with you.
Okay, I'll be quick. My first book is called The Cuss Method. It's about my struggle with binge eating. When I was in college, I interviewed dietitians and psychologists about that healthy relationship with food. You can find it on Amazon. And my second book, also found on Amazon, is called Stop Getting in Your Own Way. And I wrote it for female entrepreneurs who want to break through that level of failing, all the limiting beliefs, all the bad habits, and actually create a successful business. Also on Amazon. My TED Talk, the simple formula that builds courage. And it's under Jaclyn DiGregorio, which is my maiden name. So if you
spell it for us.
DIGREGORIO. Also, my books are under that. I'm writing my third book right now, which will be under my new name. And it's all about sort of a lot of this conversation, ditching the I'll be happy when, essentially. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, Jaclyn, if you want, there's a chapter in my book that it talks about happy when. So use that as a
I would love to. Oh my gosh, I love it. We'll have to connect on it.
Definitely. Awesome. And then last but not least, how can we connect with you?
Yeah, my website, jaclyngallo.com. Super simple.
Super simple. Jaclyn, thank you so much. It is just such a joy and a pleasure to chat with you. And I look forward to many other conversations on the podcast and all over the place. You are so much fun. You are so energetic. And I really enjoy talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. To our audience, thank you for listening to another episode of the Wonder Series, where we give you the opportunity to think outside the box, look at life from a different perspective, and ultimately find your path to living that healthy, happy lifestyle that works for you. We'll see you next Wednesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. The Wonder Series is sponsored by Living Healthy List. You can find more about the podcast at livinghealthylist.com. Till next week, I leave you with this: healthy living, happy life, everyone.